Now, every time I've got chocolate on my bench, I'm really getting excited. So the last time we did a dark chocolate mousse, and this is really good, but I agree that sometimes it's not all that easy because you have to have the meringue, melt the chocolate, and the right temperature and texture mixed together, and then you got these raw egg yolks that you have to fold in, and these are some hurdles for some people, so I thought we need something different. Now today, we're gonna be making the white chocolate mousse. Now this is so easy, you cannot believe it. 2 ingredients. That's all you need. 2 ingredients. Honestly, white chocolate and a good quality cream. That's it. So we're gonna be melting the chocolate, whipping the cream, mix the whole thing together, and then we're gonna binge in front of the television. Or if you have some friend, you can also serve this as a little dessert, let's say. Okay, let's go. And there we are. This is so simple. Ingredients number 1, white chocolate, and these are the little pellets. You can find this in baking shops or online or in chocolatiers. I like to use these because they're very handy. If you don't have that, you can absolutely use any chocolate tablets you find in your supermarket. Just make sure it's good quality. The cream has to be a whole cream, a heavy whipping cream, about 33 to 35% fat content. That's all what matters. For the making of the recipe, you're just gonna have to divide the cream. This is the main one. And we're going to use for the whipping cream, and this we're going to warming it up and mixing it with the chocolate to make a ganache. The ganache is basically cream with chocolate mixed together, and it's going to prevent the chocolate to solidify too quickly. The cookware is simple: a pan, a bowl. I've got a whisk, rubber spatula. I'm going to use another bowl for whipping the cream, but that's about it. As always, you will find all the ingredients listed in the video description. Let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do here is to melt the chocolate. While you're doing this, you have to make sure that your cream stays in the fridge. And you also maybe use a bowl, a large bowl that you're going to use to whip the cream, even if your stand mixer, and put that in the freezer or the fridge because it has to stay very, very cold. Now, how do we melt chocolate? I've got one technique that is super easy, and it is absolutely, totally foolproof, 100%. And you're never going to have any more problem of failing at making a melted chocolate. Okay, we're going to use a bain-marie, which is basically a pan with water. I'm going to bring that to the boil, and then on top, we're going to put a bowl that is not touching the water, and we're going to put the chocolate in there. It's that easy. So my water is boiling, and as I said, we're going to make a bain-marie. This is something you must have heard before. It is the double boiler technique, but there's nothing new there. So what exactly is that trick that I'm talking about? Well, you know what we're going to do here? When your water boils, what you're going to do here is to turn your heat off. That simple trick here is the key to never ever again fail a melted chocolate, okay? So step 1, bring to the boil. Step 2, turn the heat off. It's nice and hot. And step 3, I'm putting my bowl on here. Step 4, I'm putting my chocolate. And what we're gonna do here, what do you think? Absolutely nothing. And this is the key. We're not gonna do anything, we're not gonna touch anything, we're just gonna wait that the chocolate naturally melts on its own. It only takes like a few minutes, it depends on how much chocolate you're going to be using, but you don't need to mix it around, do anything, you just let it sit there, and I'll show you the result, you'll see. And here we are, so after a few minutes, my little pebbles here, you see, they start to melt away, but we need to add cream. Here is a key point, because the biggest enemy you have when you melt chocolate is the temperature. You have to warm up your cream by the slightest margin. I like to add the cream early on, when it's not totally melted, to make sure it is not going to overheat my chocolate and then it's going to split. Alright, so when it's kind of on its way to be melted, just after a few minutes, I've got all of my cream here, and I like to add it. It's not boiling or anything, it's just been warmed 20 seconds in the microwave. You can use a pan if you want. And I'm gently, very, very gently, gonna add this with my chocolate and start to blend it in. You will see it will change color. It is normal. You don't have to panic. You can blend it in. It's gonna have a funny look. It's kind of normal because that's what we need as a base. But we're gonna incorporate like this and then keep on letting the thing melt on its own. Okay, this is very, very important because it is so easy to have that thing to split, you would not believe. But if you use that technique with the bain-marie, and you can even add the cream cold, if you're really kind of, you're not sure, you want to have that kind of mix. Nicely melted, it's not split, it's gonna be ready. So I'm gonna take this off the heat and I'm gonna start with the whipped cream. All right, so as you can see, I've removed my bowl here from the heat to make sure it doesn't lose too much humidity and split. It's just here, it's gonna cool down and just give me enough time to make the whipped cream. And now for the cream. So as I said, you need to have your bowl that was in the freezer, so it's nice and cold. My cream is cold. And the good news is you don't need to use any sugar to add in your cream, because when you add sugar, it's like, is there enough sugar, not enough, blah, blah, blah. Here, not a problem. All of the cream in. And you can use a stand mixer if you want. I've got one. But here, I'm just gonna go by hand, because if the amount is not huge, you know what? You can do it by hand. So, a metal whisk on camera can be very noisy. This is why I'm using this. So all what we're gonna do here, we're gonna whisk and whisk and whisk and whisk until that becomes a whipped cream. Now be careful, we want it stiff, but not overbeaten so that it starts tasting like butter. So I'll just show you the consistency when it's done. So after 3 minutes roughly, you can see the consistency of my cream already. I can see the bottom of my bowl. This is where you need to start to be careful if you do it by hand. Because from here, when you whisk, things are gonna go very, very fast. You see? That's it. How many whisks did I, how many turns? That is as far as it should go, okay? Now you can see it is stiff. If you go any further than that, it's gonna start to have little grains into it, and that's on its way to transform into butter. And this is why a lot of time you have a whipped cream, you say, oh, it tastes a bit like butter, because you whipped it too far. Don't over-whip the cream. That's the consistency we want. And here we are. So we've got basically the two elements. I've taken my melted chocolate with the cream, which is kind of the ganache that's here, okay? And then we've got the whipped cream. All what we need to do here, be very careful. Add a tiny bit of the cream first, and then it is just that kind of folding process. I'm not the best at folding all the time. You're supposed to start by the middle and fold it in. But basically, like a chocolate mousse, you're gonna slowly incorporate. So you start with a little bit of cream to get that kind of consistency, okay? You don't want to whip or anything like this. You're gonna gently kind of try to mix it in. And once we're done, you see it liquefies very, very fast. And I think once you're about there, boom, you can start adding the rest. But you have to be very careful with the folding, because again, you know what? The cream can also become over whipped. So be very careful. Take your time. Now you can kind of break it. And basically, we're gonna kind of break it, mix it in, and that's gonna be it. Okay. All what it needs now is temperature. We're gonna leave this to cool down in the fridge, and when it's done, we're gonna be able to make some kind of quenelle and serve this on the plate. Now, if you're really tired of waiting for the mousse to be ready, what you can do is a little fruit coulis. So I'm using some frozen berries that I've kind of blitzed for my food blender here, and I'm just gonna warm that up to make our base of the coulis and before filtering it, okay? I've got about 100 grams. Perfect, so the first boil up here, that's it. I'm turning my heat off, I'm not cooking anything, I just want to melt everything here. And now we're gonna filter this through a sieve. And here we have it. So what I'm gonna do, I've got a small bowl, cold of course, and I'm just gonna take everything through. You can use again a rubber spatula, I've got one on the side here, but I'm okay for now. Grab everything, put everything in here. Now as you can see, this is pretty dark because it is mixed berry. So there's blackberries and everything. But all what I'm after here is just a little bit of that precious juice to serve as an accompaniment with the mousse. And it's a simple thing to make, and it does add something, some color, some taste. It's great. Perfect. So look at this. I've got my little coulis here. Of course, what we want is to have a little bit of acidity, so a hint of lemon, just a few drops, and sugar. Now sugar, for a normal coulis, about 20 grams per 100 grams of sugar, but because the mousse is very, very sweet already, I'm gonna add not even a tablespoon worth, and just blend it until the sugar is dissolved, and that's gonna be it. I'm gonna reserve this in the fridge or the freezer until it's really cold, and we're gonna be ready to serve. Okay, so I have been a little bit impatient, and I've actually put this in the freezer first and then in the fridge. But what's happening once it's cooling down, cleaning my spoon here, you can see there is bubbles of air coming back to the surface. This is the air contained in the cream that we've whipped, basically. And that is creating that kind of mousse effect. So I'm using a spoon in hot water here, and I'm going to draw it, and we're going to just try it. You see? Look at that. Look at this consistency. Ah. Mm. Oh. Oh, I think I'm growing some wings on my back. Now, one thing I've realized the more and more I'm cooking is that, you know, it's not the cooking part sometimes that's difficult, but the plating. It's such a hurdle sometimes. If you're not prepared, if you don't have a plan of action, it can actually be kind of really frustrating because you don't know what you're gonna get, you don't know if it's gonna look right. So what I'm doing now is that I kind of go online in some books, I'm getting some ideas first to try to get something, and I keep things simple. So for the simple stuff here, mint is your friend, absolutely, for a little touch of something that looks good. Roasted nuts, something like this, always nice, gives some color and texture, and of course we've got the coulis. So one of the things that I've seen in some video that's common, I'm just going to do one quenelle. You do a little trail like this, apparently, to divide the plate in two. So already you add some texture, a little garnish here, and just some crunchiness. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put the quenelle, well, let's see how it's going to look like the other way around, a few drops of the coulis, and that's going to be it, something simple. Okay, so I've got my plate already. Make sure this is kind of cold. I'm going to dry my spoon here, and basically, like I said, I'm going to try to blend this, pull back, and when you're here, basically you're going to do that motion like that. Try to cut the edges, okay, and like I said, it's not perfect. I'm going to take my plate, I'm just going to try to put my quenelle. So as I said, it's not perfect. You see, it was not cold enough, but I've got the kind of the shape. I can reshape it a little bit. I'm going to put this back in the fridge, and I'm going to wait for it to solidify. But it's forgiving. You can go in the mousse over and over again. As long as you don't whip it, it's still going to work. What I'm going to try to do with that little spoon here is to make some little dots. And you know what? You don't want to take it too far, because otherwise it's just going to be, you know, taking forever and stuff like that. And I thought, you know what? You just want to eat the mousse at the end of the day. And there we have it. So the last look at how plating of the not so perfect quenelle, but still, look at this. Bit of color, a bit of texture, and you can get something really, really acceptable on your table for your guests. It's a great recipe to try at home. So as always, if you want to try it out, if you're making quenelle, if you want to share some technique, use the comment section. You can also share what you've made, your little dessert, with the white chocolate mousse on Instagram, #FrenchCookAcademy. And if you want to follow me in all these adventures, Facebook, Patreon, and if you want to learn more about the techniques, as I always say, we have the online culinary school, so I hope to see you there. Now, that completes the recipe for the week, and I see you all next time for another French recipe. Bye-bye.